Hey there, welcome to What's My Pipeline. It's me again, Paul Mosenson, from New Spark Consulting, fractional CMO. I'm here with my partner, of course, Brett. Hey, you're from where again?
Sales quarterback.
Right. Oh boy, don't get started with football conversation as we record this after my Eagles just lost.
It's
You
tough.
know, but okay, enough of that. All right. We actually have a guest this week for this What's My Pipeline stream, and his name is Rick Tessick. Yeah, we need to say his name because don't try to write it; it'll just take forever. And Rick is from another sales group called Sales Acceleration. That starts with an X. And hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you today? Hello, Brett. Good to
Hey,
see
Rick.
you.
So we've talked about these topics before. It's an ongoing theme with our show anyway about marketing and sales working together, and we're
Mhm.
gonna go dive deeper in certain topics and about that whole issue because again, it's we all know how critical it is for marketing and sales to work together and to drive revenue. And Rick's done a lot of that work and as a sales coach slash consultant slash whatever. And but let's go to Rick first and for our listeners out there and your own insights about what do you think is wrong with sales and marketing teams right now, and what's your insights on why that is?
Well, there's probably some misalignment. If you think about it, traditionally, a lot of sales and marketing functions within organizations have been very siloed in their pursuits, right? And so the right hand, in a lot of cases, doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And I think along the way, that causes some conflict. If you look at the sales side, for example, what do salespeople want? They want to pursue hot, qualified leads, right? They don't want to waste their time chasing dead ends. They want to maximize their time. They want to work on deals. They want to develop relationships. So, qualified leads are very important. I think the other thing, especially in this day and age, that's very critical is because buyers have so much more access to information, right? It's important for two things to occur within a seller's organization. The first is that your messaging across that buyer's journey is on point, right? Right message to the right people at the right time.
Mhm.
The second issue is understanding that buyer's journey and making sure from both a marketing and sales perspective that you're aligned with each step of that along the way. Because if if you think about it, if a um, buyer is in the evaluation stage and the seller's in the salesy stage, you have a disconnect there, okay? And you're not going to gain much traction. So when you have these two groups, sales and marketing, more aligned, working towards a common goal, and understanding what the roles, responsibilities, and accountability are, you have a much better chance for success to achieve sustained revenue growth.
But let me ask you this though: we say that, I mean, we've heard that for like years and years and years, right? Um, why isn't that not working? Is it ego? Is it can't the CEO say what's going on? Like because they have meetings, right? I mean, does that come from leadership, or do like people like us who are consultants say, "Well, we need to fix this ourselves" versus something internally? I mean, what have you seen as far as that goes?
Yeah, let me jump in here.
Yeah.
I agree with
Yeah,
what Rick was saying too. I think it starts with this misalignment of priorities. Where marketing has traditionally been more about generating more leads and having a broader net, where sales has been kind of more focused on who's more ready now and fits what we need. And if you don't have those priorities set up and aligned at first, then you're going to get this mismatch. I don't know if you, Rick, but I've had a hard time in the past engaging marketing on some of the content that they create, or it hasn't been part of my responsibility at all. And then all of a sudden content just shows up and it's not going to get the right fish, for the fishermen, so to
Right.
speak.
I agree with you. And I also agree with Paul's comment that I think it is a leadership issue. Think about it from your experiences. Um, how much time, effort, and investment goes into your revenue driving engine? And that's both sales and marketing. How many organizations really focus a lot of their time and resources on that engine as opposed to other aspects of their business, right? So from the top down, you have to look at it, what needs to be in place for us to do this effectively. And I think that starts at looking at three core areas, right? Um, in terms of the sales and marketing alignment. And number one, your people, right? Do you have the right people in the right roles? Do you have the necessary commitment and the level of accountability? Um, do you have the right platforms to engage? Are you utilizing automation marketing tools? Are you utilizing your CRM? Do you have a central repository of data and information that the required parties have access to? And lastly, do you have the right processes in place to where these two functions collectively can converge on a common goal?
Well, the name of the show should be easier said than done, right? So,
Right.
yeah, but I'm just thinking about like a small company, even they have a sales manager and he somehow got a job, maybe, about they should know what to do, right? And sometimes you look at if salespeople aren't doing their job. Now I'm calling on the marketing side. Is it a leadership thing, or is it the salesperson is not the right fit, or is just not getting the right training? And like it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Whatever.
Well, I mean, obviously we can't tell our general people like how to manage their own company with inside, incentive wise, but if we say, hey, as a takeaway, make sure that your incentives are aligned. That ought to be an easy one. I think another one, like Rick just mentioned, is the CRM. A lot of those platforms are the same now, and there's more visibility for everybody. You can kind of see what's going on in there. And I think that would potentially help now that you can kind of see, it's like looking into someone's desktop a little bit. You can maybe see some of the campaigns that are going on.
I mean, are you doing, are efforts made, for example, if you're developing content or messaging, is this being done as a task? Okay, somebody's doing this because somebody told them to come up with something, or is it being done with purpose and intention that you're trying to target something to generate some awareness and some interest? All right. So again, how is that being managed from a people point of view? What's the process involved to make that happen? Okay. And what's your ability to measure whether it's working or not? Because I think the cool thing about sales and marketing working together, and I see it happening with companies I work with, is that you can always test something, right? You can do testing to see if it's effective or not, and you can always adjust along the way. And it has to be something that there's an end goal in mind, and the path to get there, there's some steps that need to be taken that are measurable to determine if you're going down the right path to achieve that success.
So you're saying that it wouldn't hurt to have a kind of a spirit of not only collaboration, but experimentation as well, where, hey, let's try this and see, and if we can figure out a way to measure it and then improve on it and learn from it, right? And what works for our company.
Right. Right.
I think
You
it's
know,
a higher level thing here. I wanted to interrupt for a second because we were talking testing and these are like tactical things, right? But from a marketing side, since we're talking about this topic, again, it's about leadership, right? If I said to the marketing department, I said, your job is not to generate leads. Your job is to help the salespeople sell. Okay. Think
Right.
about that for a minute, right? Like maybe I'd rather, instead of getting 25 leads that turn into 2 appointments, maybe am I doing better by getting 10 better leads that have 4 appointments? Yeah, my cost per lead will be up, but my cost per sale will be down, right?
Sure.
I'm just putting things in perspective, right? As far as, these young people come in and do their noodling with Facebook or whatever, and like,
Right.
the point of the matter is this, again, it goes back to qualification lead. Well, it's a demo, so I did my job. Well, or whatever it is. But, it's like going back to marketing with those reports saying, how did our cost per sale or return of ad spend do this quarter versus last quarter? What did you do differently? Maybe the answer is I did better targeting, right? So that's why it costs more to get the quality people we want, for example. So maybe the cost per lead is up, but again, our funnel metrics are better. I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, no, that would
out of
really,
it,
don't you
right?
think that would work? I mean, if you said, if let's say you went to market and said 50% of your bonus is tied to sales, whether sales improves or not, and then let their creativity maybe assist in the sales process. So like, you know, Rick, Paul, and I've talked about this a couple times, like those situations where you're in the middle of an engagement with a client, how nice it would be if marketing had kind of continuing to keep a lead warm or a prospect warm while you're engaging with them. Just something, a campaign that you wouldn't have to touch, that's just running, that just says, hey, here's a new feature of our, you know, software
Well,
service or client or whatever it is. Just something where they're engaged.
there's a. Do you want to? Should I break? Do you want to say something or should I say something?
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay. Well, I think what you're saying is, no, it's true. Where if leads are in and your quality leads, maybe you had demos or free consultations, whatever it is, they're not ready
Mhm.
to buy yet. That's really, I think what you're talking about here is not ready to buy. So your CRM may say follow up in 6 weeks, because you don't want to be a nudge as a salesperson if they're not buying yet, right? But they haven't opted out of messaging. So that's where kind of like maybe the sales cadences you're talking about to build
Yes.
trust. It's not, we all have kind of sometimes have a tendency, like I do the same thing, like checking in, or versus let's look something up in the industry or something and just share some information, right? And that's the hard way to do it, but the more effective way to do it when you think about it is because you're trying to be, a thoughtful consultant in a way versus, the general check-in. I don't know. Any thoughts? Is that what you're thinking? Like, thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I bet, Rick, when you've been in sales, if you've got something that sort of went quiet or cold for 4 to 6 weeks, what's the likelihood of you following back up on that? I mean, and not that it depends, of course, if you how many prospects you have, but you're I don't know about you. For me, I stuck with a hot iron, right?
Right, but I always want to have things in my hip pocket. I think it's important to stay on top of things. And again, a lot of this comes down to how well qualified they are, right? You're not chasing hope. And if and some of these things, the sales cycle lasts a little longer because there's things that are beyond your control, and you want to, you want to keep them in that, warm state, but at the same time, you're pursuing other things that are more imminent. So I
Mhm.
think it's the checks and balance. And to your point earlier, that's where marketing can assist in keeping, top of, and keeping your organization top of mind. But again, I think these are all tactical, functional things, and I do think it does go back to um, the beginning in that the leadership is in place to provide that direction, and from an alignment point of view, the cornerstone of an organization is really, does the organization have a compelling value proposition? All right. And, have they put something together that differentiates them and that identifies problems they can solve for customers and the tangible value that provides? Most companies overlook this, so they're going hand to mouth all the time, and the leads become insignificant because after the value proposition, have you taken the time to identify your ideal customer? And so, are you pursuing those types of customers that best fit the solutions that you provide? Again, if you're more dialed in, I think you're going to have a better opportunity to be more successful, namely because you're going to be able to replicate success that you've already had.
Right. Knowing what's already got you there and do more of that when you get that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the alignment aspect is that you really have to look at, what are the barriers that prevent this from occurring, and now we got to get together, talk through these, and work towards a common goal that both functions are going to be measured on at the end of the day. And then within that goal, there's certain actions that are measurable and required along the path to get to that goal. And, any good manager is going to be cognizant of those metrics that are in place, is going to see what the progress is, and is going to coach his team along to get to that point. I think marketing and sales collaboration is definitely a two-way street, because I think from a marketing
Right.
perspective, sales is a valuable tool to give them the information that they need. They're, salespeople are getting this from the street, market trends, customer preferences, so on and so forth, that enable a marketing team to come up with compelling messaging that, again, can turn this into um, more higher quality leads for salespeople to pursue.
No, I agree. In fact, with any, a differentiator with me, and it shouldn't be, but it is. Like I like to be in sales meetings, right? Because I would
Mm.
challenge. I want to ask questions, right? As a marketer, because like you said, I want to find different triggers that might say, oh, that might be a good topic for a blog or an article or a white paper, whatever it is, right?
Right.
We're trying to, we might have our own research of client pain points, but maybe we stumble on something new, or maybe something is um, more popular than another one, right? Like, oh, you had 4 prospects who have this problem. That's a big thing, isn't it? We should emphasize that more, right?
Right. Where
Right.
you solved them. Yeah. Definitely.
So these are the kind of things that, when they do these win-loss things, what happened to that lead? Not gonna be them buy. We want to know why, right? At least have something. Now you know how it is, in sales, right? Sometimes if you don't get the deal, they don't respond to you, right?
Right.
And they just want to move on. That's the hard part, right? Is being frustrated. I'm sure you've seen that a lot. Is I don't know. So
What do you guys think about maybe engaging like a voice of the customer to add into kind of company that maybe still has either silos or they're just misalignment, where they're trying to get from a customer point of view their opinion on how marketing and sales from a particular company is performing?
I believe the voice of the customer is essential. That's that's where it starts and stops, right? And if when you're able to acquire that information, again, even from a sales perspective, it's invaluable. I remember, going to customers and, sitting down with people and kind of doing a report card with them. How are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
What, what's going well for you? What do we need to improve on? What would you like to see? And so on and so forth. And when you acquire this sort of information, I think a couple things hold true. Number one, it illustrates that you have a good relationship with these people, that they're able to be transparent with you as opposed to ghosting you. So
Right.
that's always helpful, right? And number two, if you're serious about acquiring this information, it gives you something to leverage to make yourself better, right? And the voice of the customer it's just it's just essential because it takes out any anecdotal thoughts. It's very objective.
The tools that are come out now are much nicer for getting voice of the customer besides the old surveys or whatever. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we could incorporate that much easier. I haven't spent a ton of time looking in those, but with the graphics on what we've seen, that that area is exploding as well as other ones. Um,
yeah, for sure. As we get near the end here, Rick, what is in your view? Um, we know what has to get done, but how does it get done? The better alignment, like what's the impetus? How do we go in and you know and act that? We just kind of create this new thing with the CEO said, here's what's got to get done. Like, is there a strategy or a way to change the culture?
Well, I think again, as I said earlier, you have people, you have platforms, you have processes, right? And within these, you have to have levels of commitment, levels of responsibility, and levels of accountability. And again, these all are based on a goal. All right. So a company could say, we want to increase our revenue X number of percent, right? Well, that's all well and good, but it always comes down to, okay, how are you going to do it, right? And you have to kind of take a step back and say, what do we need to do this effectively, and what's hindered our progress before? A lot of times everybody looks at lagging indicators. They look at orders, they look at sales, okay?
right.
That stuff's in the rear view mirror. I think you have to look at things like, how's your pipeline look quarter on quarter, right? What's your new customer acquisition rate, right? What's the cost for acquiring those customers? Are we upselling existing customers? All right. And if these are the goals, and they're measurable, and there's actions that are required, I mean, in my opinion, that's, if you could be working within these organizations, that's impetus enough to take action and make something happen.
Yeah, I
But
mean, you guys look at yourself and say, well, we need to fix something because we don't want to lay people off. Do we
Right.
hire a consultant, or do we just kind of work internally as a leadership team to come up with better solutions so that we can all work together better because we know that there's issues.
right, so we talk about the what, and we talk about the, how you have to have processes in place and so forth. And to make this work, I think you have to answer the question, why? Why is this important? Why do these two groups have to be much better aligned, you know, joined at the hip to make this work? And if people understand that um, the way you engage with customers now, the information out there that's available, the reason why messaging is so important, the reason, that so many people want a piece of somebody's time to make their pitch, all right, that you have to be on top of your game. And in order to do this, you need to share information to put yourself in the best position to be successful. I mean, look at even in sports where you have, where physical attributes are so important. Look at sports over the past 10 years at least, how data is so important now,
Right.
right? And but it isn't just acquiring the data, they're actually doing something with the data. And so, looking at information, collecting the right information, and putting processes in place that are going to help you go along a path to success, and having that level of accountability to execute, I think put you in a much better position than companies you're competing with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, especially if you look at the idea of sales and marketing being not just independent departments, but essentially one team that have the same objectives, and objectives, and then let the people kind of figure out what they need to do to get there.
You
I
know,
mean, Paul,
yeah,
if I may just interject here on Brett's point.
yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, um, the marketing effort doesn't end once some leads generated, right?
Right.
It the marketing effort overlaps into the sales process to some degree. And I think that's mindset is markedly different than it was in the past. And so why not leverage that?
Right.
Why not, make your job easier?
I agree.
No, I mean, we almost like need to change the names of these things, right? Like, we're just in the revenue department, right? Versus marketing and sales. We're just the growth department or something, right?
Rev Gen.
Yeah,
Right.
we just
No,
sit in the same rooms or something, and
Right.
well, really, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is we just like players, or just we have just our role. What's your role? I'm the lead generator. I'm the lead nurturer. I'm the lead seller. And just
well, Paul, I've seen it growth leader as a title show up now, as
Right.
opposed to just sales manager or, to your point.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can get a sale, all right? But, the objective is that you want that to be a great experience for the customer, all right? You were there with them along the way, and had seamless transitions through each stage, and made it pain free, so that you're able to build this customer advocacy, loyalty that, puts you in, enhances your base, right? and gives you the opportunity to provide more value to them over time. I mean, what do they say? You know, when you look at you know, when you're trying to upsell an existing customer, you have a 60-70% chance of winning, whereas if you're trying to acquire a new customer, your win rate is 5 to 20%.
Right.
So the math suggests take care of those existing customers
Definitely.
and dovetail in
You know what?
new customers.
That's actually a topic for another meeting. Actually, another stream is the customer success or the after sell process, right? You know,
Right.
You know, retention, whatever words we want to use, like limiting churn. It's you know how it is in the beginning. You know, how do companies generate revenue? Net new or retention, right? We're so focused on net new, right? Because it's easier to do that, you know, like, ooh, let's do some TikTok ads. But the you know, really creating relationships, because you know, at the end of the day, you want case studies and referrals. You want to talk to them. You want to see the results of your solutions so that you can get a case study out of it, you know, and that's how you have a good relationship. But we should probably like kind of like at the end of our time now, but we'll do this again and talk about more things about this topic because there's so much to talk about.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, but this is some good stuff to think about, you know, at your company is you start just you know, just looking at it, looking at the data, like you said, look at what's going on now, marketing and sales. And, you know, if you want to grow, join together with the band, right? I just made that, you know, the Who song.
I know.
But, right.
Always need a pun or something, right, Paul?
Always join together. That's the theme, right? But I got to be careful. So, Rick Tkaczyk, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And
nice
we'll
talking to you too.
Other topics. And,
all right. You guys have a great afternoon.
What'smypipeline.com.
Bye now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.